Hiya. So it's me again, and today we are back with another episode of the Champion Legion progression. This marks episode 27, and this episode, just like the last few weeks, have been a little bit of a sleeper. And I would have loved for this week to actually be eventful because there actually was the accessory DMT that came around this week, but I was very busy this week on top of just the work that I've been doing, so I wasn't able to catch it. So, given that that's the case, we're probably going to plan to spend everything on 5, 10, 15 and try to prop up my Bowmaster and Adele as much as humanly possible. I'm going to try my best to run my bosses on my Adele and try to get as many arcane pieces as possible. Worst case scenario, if I don't end up with a lot of pieces, I'll probably just buy whatever's left. Because being completely honest, I'm hitting a point in time where I have so much money that I don't really want to wait for the gear anymore. Especially when, as the events come around, I can buy equips to save myself money, which kind of goes hand in hand. And if I enhance gear earlier, then I can progress faster, which means that I'll be making more money as well. So, besides that, I also want to thank everybody in the comment section from the last video for pointing out a specific phrase that I've been using way too much. And hearing it back over after watching my video from last week, I realized just how bad it was. Every character recap had that two-word phrase used over and over again. So in this video, I will promise you guys that that phrase will not be used a single time because I will either cut the recording or do an entirely new recording to make sure that it is not said. At least for this video, who knows? Maybe I might end up returning back to it, but yeah. I was very busy this week, so it is another week where not much has changed. And I'm also planning to introduce a new series starting tomorrow, where I'm going to be uploading a video every Sunday and every Monday, because it's becoming a lot harder for me to stream, given what my schedule is going to be consistently looking like. So I think it's only better for me to make 2 videos in a week instead of trying to force streams and, maybe be only able to stream like twice or once a week where, I'm streaming maybe 2-3 hours. I'd rather make sure that any sort of content that I upload is full and complete, and I think it's much better if I upload videos instead. Now, that number, 2 videos, might be 3 or 4. I might just upload any sort of bossing that I do in the week, or any sort of boss that I attempt on a specific character, like let's say the Bowmaster or the Adele. But yeah, things are definitely a little weird for me over the past couple of weeks, and I'm just trying to get settled in and figure out how I want to go about doing everything. So I do apologize for the wackiness or the incompleteness of my content, and I promise that going forward there will be some stability again and consistency. So without further ado, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and remember to like, comment, and sub, or I will literally eat your mesos faster than Star Forcing does. On to the recaps. Alrighty, so let's get started on the Khali. Now, before I show any of my equipment or my arcane symbols and what's inside of my inventory, I just want to make it very clear that the time constraints that I have this week have been really bad, to the point where I haven't even been able to fully complete my daily feast prep. I actually straight up just haven't been able to log in some days, so I might be getting the final rewards a little late, but it's not that big of a deal. If anything, I'd rather be waiting longer before I actually claim everything. And realistically speaking, there's not a crazy amount of rewards left or any special rewards left like the ones back here. But of course, if we can get our hands on them, the more it would benefit me. So, let's start with the Khali. The Khali, as you can tell from my time constraints, has made it very hard for me to do dailies this week, so symbols haven't changed, but we are slowly making our way towards maxing our Cernium, which is really nice. I want to cut my dailies as much as possible because I don't like doing dailies. The more I do them, the more it just pisses me off. And the same with the weeklies. For 3-4 weeks now in a row, I have been getting completely washed in terms of my loot for weeklies. The Khali has gotten absolutely nothing in terms of drops, no pitched. I get Dawn now, but realistically, I don't have any benefit from Dawn anymore because all of my equips besides my Arcanes are 22, and I haven't hit any Arcanes either, so no real improvements there. We've also made no improvements on the Hexamatrix. Kind of a standstill in terms of the improvements that I've actually made for this week. But one thing that I still slowly have been building is the meso count. I've still been staying on top of my weeklies, so we are pushing 120 bill. And there's still one more week left before the 5-10-15. So that means, best case scenario, I can probably hit 150 and split 75-75 between the Adele and the Marksman. Just don't pay attention to the fact that 300 cubes in my storage are expiring. Those are minor details, and you'll get no benefit out of thinking about something like that. So yeah, not really much has changed on the Khali, and you'll notice a similar pattern as I move to my other characters. So let's transition to the Cannoneer. So the Cannoneer, similar to the Khali, has not really changed, but the Cannoneer decided that it actually wants to build an unlimited number of eye patch spares. We got another eye patch on this character, and I don't know how to feel about it, if I were to be completely honest, because this character already has a 22, which means that when the 30-star patch comes, if it does come, because GMS is actually falling further and further behind KMS, which is slightly concerning. And by slightly, I mean actually very concerning. I'm actually going to have room to go for 23. Now, of course, I'm going to tap these eye patches before I move to the main one. I'm going to see if these ones hit a higher star, just to kind of test the waters, because I don't want to risk the 22 that I already have. It's smarter to use the spares that I have to my advantage. Now, it will cost more meso, but once again, as we're approaching the end game, meso is becoming less and less of a concern. And this was the main goal of getting 6 characters fully established, is now I don't have to worry about meso. I can just spend meso realistically whenever I want. Now, of course, zeroing out all the time doesn't feel good, so I'm not going to be spending meso all the time, but if there's an emergency or if I really want to be pushing damage, I can do so because I'll always have money on hand. But that's pretty much all that's changed for the Cannoneer. We've made slight progress towards leveling our symbols, and in terms of 6 job, nothing has changed. And for this character, it probably won't change for a while because I've hit checkpoints that I really like 20 for Bullet Bill and 19 for Cannon Barrage. If I were to push anything on this character, I would get all of these to level 4, all of my 5th job skills. I'd probably get the Origin to 4, and then push Bazooka, Mortar, Nautilus Strike, basically the Mortar Mastery until 19, and then I'd probably get Rolling Rainbow to 9, which wouldn't take too long. It's maybe like another 1,000 frags, which, I mean, now that I say it, it does sound like quite a lot and would need a decent bit of farming, but this is a forward thinking that will not happen immediately. So let's make our way onto the Man of Mark variety, shall we? So the Marksman, just like the other two, hasn't really changed, and the Marksman has actually been getting completely washed, just like all of my other characters. I mean, I guess you could say that the Cannoneer actually did get loot, but loot that doesn't really have any sort of effectiveness or improvement on my character, or something that I can hardly even consider to be loot. So the same goes for this character. I have gotten more Dawn, but Dawn isn't really helpful. I want to see Arcanes, and I want to see pitch that this character doesn't have, which this character doesn't have any pitched besides the Berserked in quotation marks. It's not really finished yet, but I'm still keeping it because it still is a 21 Zerk. Like, it's good. It's probably matching, if not surpassing, a 22 Twilight mark. And, of course, we have the book. The book... Now, granted, the book is one of the best pitch to get, but the book by itself is not really doing much in terms of the damage that I'm actually getting. Because there's no Star Force, there's no potential. It's more of just you get a bonus set effect on top of, you know, the pitched items that you already have. And this character does not have a lot of pitched items. We still have the Source, and we still have a Dreamy Belt. I should actually be taking the opportunity to buy pendants, I'm pretty sure. No, I need to finish my ring first. I thought I had my ring finished, so I actually need to finish my ring before I start buying pendants. So maybe that's something I do on 5, 10, 15. I should be able to buy 2 rings, because if I buy one today and then buy one on Wednesday, I should be able to get 3 rings. But that's the weird thing about Gollux is, let's say I do buy 2 rings and the first one just ends up going. Now I have an extra 2 rings, which is minus 1,400 coins, and that's a lot of coins. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to be instantly approaching my, you know, my source to 22, but it is very soon on this character's checklist, so I should definitely be thinking about it and trying to stock as many pendants as I can. Pendants is the only item in the Gollux set that is actually worth stocking up on. Now, of course, belts and earrings as well, because they just drop from Gollux. I guess you could say the ring is the only one that's not worth stocking up on, because once your ring goes 22, there's no more verticality to it. So having more rings in your inventory doesn't really accomplish anything. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the Marksman. Let's get on to the Dual Blade. Okay, so here we are on the Dual Blade, and I actually haven't made the gains on this character that I've supposed to have been making this week, because I actually haven't done Angler Company yet, which I am going to do. I will make time tomorrow to do it before the weekly reset, which will actually finally push my Azura's Anger up to 9, and then maybe we can start getting Phantom Blow to 9. Now, it is very weird because now that Mastery 3 and 4 are out, I'm kind of inclined to level up the Mortality and Blade Clone Mastery to 9 as well, because Mortality does a lot of damage. And I mean a lot. And I'm even inclined to level up this one as well, because you get not only just Phantom Blow damage, but you also get Mortality damage. And Mortality is doing a lot of damage. So I feel very inclined to level up these as well. Each level in this mastery is giving Mortality 10% damage, and Phantom Blow 1% damage, whereas leveling up this one is giving Blade Clone some extra damage, 6%, and giving Mortality 5% damage. So, I don't know how to feel about the Dual Blade. It's kind of loaded in terms of how much benefit it actually gets from its 6 job, but I'm sure if I were to level up everything in this character's 6 job to at least 19, that I would feel the damage difference by an absolute long shot. Like, it wouldn't even be close in terms of the damage that I'd be doing right now. Now, of course, I've gotten the baseline, so just the damage difference between having literally nothing and everything unlocked is big by itself, but I do want to continue going. So I think the plan for however long I need it to go for is going to be just throwing Angular Company on this character. I think the only time I'll stop doing Angular Company on this character is when my Adele and my Bowmaster are both over 270, which means that I can throw Angular Company on those characters and have this character do High Mountain instead, so that I'm not wasting the XP that comes from the Epic Dungeon. But yeah, gear-wise, nothing has changed again. No pitched, no drops, nothing. No bitches. I'm sad. What can you do? Such is the way of life. Hopefully we get something next week. But that's for us to see when next week comes around. So let's shuffle on over to the Bowmaster. Here we are on the Bowmaster, and once again, I want to make it very clear that I did happen to miss Cube Sale, which I do kind of feel bad about. But, very big but here that needs to be acknowledged. That means that we'll have more money going into 5, 10, 15, and I think I'm going to make full use of it. I guess I'll just give a quick rundown as to what's going to be happening on this character and on the Adele, because we will have 75 bill on both characters, which hopefully should be an ample amount of money to make these characters feel completely different from what they were this week. So for the Bowmaster, we have to get 17 shoes and a 17 cape. The other 3 arcanes are already 17. We have to go for 21 CRAs. We have to go for 20 star earrings, 20 star belt, 20 star ring, times 2. I might be able to go for a 21 Guardian Angel ring. I can at least guarantee 17, so that's nice. I can go for a 20 star pendant, times 2 if I'm lucky. And that pretty much should eat all of my money. I can also go for a 20 star bean mark, but once again it depends on how much money I have. I also do have a pap mark. I probably will give this a shot. In the spirit of the old days, I will just go 22 or bust on this thing because I don't care about doing Commerci. As you guys can tell, I'm barely finding the time to do my dailies. So if I'm barely finding the time to do my dailies, then God knows when I'm gonna find the time to do Commerci as well, because Commerci takes a lot of friggin' time, and I don't want to be spending that time on boring ass content that should have been removed 10 years ago. So yeah, the Bowmaster does have a whole bunch of earrings. I probably should start stocking up belts as well. Because if I want to attempt the belt, I'm definitely going to need more belts than this, so I probably should run my daily pink bean this week on this character to get a handful of more belts. But worst case scenario, even if I sit on a 17 belt, I'm sure the 17 CRAs, 17s, and 21s elsewhere will still make this character feel substantially stronger. So yeah, let's hope that after the 5, 10, 15, the Bowmaster starts getting in the range where I can clear C10 within 2 hours, or maybe even less. If I can get it done within 90 minutes, or 75, or 80 minutes, that would also be really nice too. If I get a Kant, that will also make this character's bossing so much better. I don't like using Roar 3 and Weapon Jump 3 on this character. It just doesn't feel good because half of our burst just disappears because we don't really have a ring for the other half, or the latter half, if you will. So, hopefully soon enough with bossing, if I get boxes, that we manage to pull any form of Cont, even a Cont 3. I would still use a Cont 3 over Roar and Weapon Jump 3. Now, granted, if these were to upgrade to level 4, then I'd have to go back to Roar and Weapon Jump, but here's to hoping that we just hit a Cont 4 and we can just live our life. So, let's shuffle on over and wrap it up with the Adele. And last but not least, we are on the Adele. The Adele still only has 2 pieces of arcanes, which is really bugging me. But we'll work with what we've got. Now, the Adele has been the recipient of trades for at least a few weeks. So the Adele actually has a handful of Daybreaks, Twilights, and Guardian Angel rings. And I'm thinking that in comparison to the Bowmaster, we can do some funky things on the Adele. We can attempt some 21s here, maybe even 22s on a Daybreak. If I were to hit a 22 Daybreak on this character, I would be absolutely ecstatic. I'd be really happy if that were the case. Now, we do have other things to attempt, like we have Dominators as well. I'm pretty sure I might be able to just... yeah, I can finish my Gollux set. So instead of worrying about the Dominator Pendant, I'm actually going to buy a Gollux Pendant, and that's going to replace this. Now, notice, if you will, I am still on 2-set Gollux, so this character still has a lot of room to grow. Typically hits around just under 25 mil in all the damage presets. After 5, 10, 15, I wouldn't even be surprised if this character was pushing past 50 mil. Now, my biggest concern for the Adele is the droplets. I'd love to hit at least 1 more piece. If I were to get a box, either a weapon or an armor. If I get an armor, I'd probably get a shoulder so that I can force the 5 sets. It's not typically that you don't get shoulders because you don't want to be boxing will pieces, you want to be boxing lucid pieces. But given my circumstances and how long I'm going to be bossing on this character before I actually start pushing for 22 arcanes, I think it's actually okay to box a shoulder to force the 5 set so that this character can do C10 faster. Now, in the same way as the Bowmaster though, we will still have similar plans in terms of 17ing arcanes, getting Gollux to 21, and the same for CRAs. Now, the Adele is also slowly starting to unlock the rest of its 6 job. We have all of our masteries. I have yet to do High Mountain as well, but High Mountain will gift me 40 frags. That will put into these. So we'll be getting closer to actually unlocking our 5th jobs, which is just straight up more damage. I think I'm going to start with Ruin, and then go Infinity, and then Legacy Restoration, and then Storm. And then once I get all of these, we're going to do our stat. Once we have all our stat, then it's going to be a big question mark in terms of where I'm actually putting my daily frags. I think from that point forward, I might just throw it onto the Khali, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see on how, on how strong or weak these characters feel after their gear improvements. But that's pretty much going to be it for the Adele. And that's going to be it in general. It was very hard to make this video. I don't know if you've noticed through the recordings, if you looked at the top left, I have been restraining myself and trying to stay away from that phrase that I've been using a little bit too much lately. But just like the past few weeks, the biggest concern is how I'm going to be managing my time across 6 characters. I think worst case scenario, if I'm not necessarily in the mood, I could always return to focusing on bringing up a single character at a time, and then just doing a trickle effect onto the next and the next after that. So worrying about dailies when the time comes. I might have the space to actually do that now that I'm starting to make symbols from events, like sacred symbols, not arcane symbols, because I don't need arcane symbols anymore. And I think it would be a lot, it would be quite an aid to me if I didn't have to do 6 dailies every single day, because 6 dailies, even with the fact that I'm pretty much full clearing all of the maps that I go to, still takes me more than 45 minutes every single day, which, when you get home and you're tired and you're not really in the mood, is not something that you're necessarily looking forward to. And especially with how Maple's dailies are structured, for multiple characters, it is quite literally just doing the same thing over and over and over again. And I would be very happy if Maple actually introduced new dailies, or different dailies that you could do in substitute for the normal, just hey, go kill a few hundred mobs or something. Because I don't know, dailies are starting to get a little annoying. Hence the title of the last video, if you guys watched that one. And even weeklies, like, it's starting to hit that point in time again where I'm just doing weeklies and I am just getting nothing. Like, it feels like I'm doing weeklies and there's just zero substance to it. And it's not very fun. It doesn't feel like I'm progressing at all. But once again, I'm trying my best to overlook this, as some weeks are just not going to be the greatest, and at least for a few weeks you just won't get drops. That's kind of the name of the game when you start pushing further and further. And personally, I'm just not a fan of the stagnation of Maple Story when you get to the end game, because for a lot of the game you are able to progress relatively smoothly and relatively comfortably, and the curve makes sense until you get to the end game where it's a steep drop off in terms of the amount of gains and damage that you can gain. And I personally feel like a big problem is still pitched and familiars. And for the longest time, I feel like these sorts of things haven't really been addressed. And they continue to refuse to address the problems that have been plaguing Reboot. So, I don't know. Just hoping to see changes actually be done to this sort of thing, and hoping that maybe next week we'll get better RNG. So, yeah. Enough of me rambling or just yapping. I just wanted to get my thoughts and feelings out there, because it's definitely frustrating when you just keep it all in and you try to seem like, oh, it's progressing is so easy and it's just do your bosses and stuff, and sometimes it is like that, and sometimes I do enjoy the grind, but for anything that does exist long term, you have to go through the highs and the lows. So it's just all par for the course, and I just want to make it seem like, not make it seem, but I want it to be known that it's normal. Not every progression series or any time you progress is going to be completely smooth and completely straightforward. So, yeah, that's going to be it for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Remember to like, comment, and sub, or I will literally eat your mesos faster than leveling symbols does. Much love, and peace out.